like to call this meeting of Bellingham City Council's Public Work Public Safety Committee to order. We have two items before us today. The first is a bid award for the 25th Street Bike and Pedestrian Improvements. Ted?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Ted Carlson, Public Works Department. This is a project that was identified in the city's pedestrian master plan project, master plan. In fact, it was the number 2 pedestrian project. Last year we completed the Bill McDonald Parkway sidewalk, which was the number 1. This is the second ranked project, so we're excited to be moving forward with this combination of bike lane sidewalk project. A few years ago we had a transaction with the university where we exchanged some right-of-way for some property that allow this trail to have more of a meandering, or this pathway to have more of a meandering feel on one side, but it will have sidewalk on both sides. Pedestrian lighting, all of the associated stormwater requirements are taken care of, as well as bike facilities. And earlier today, or I think maybe yesterday, Councilmember Lilquist asked a question that I think probably is worth addressing right now, which was we've identified the funding source for this entire project as being Transportation Benefit District funding, and out of the non-motorized 1/3. And for the public out there, we split our Transportation Benefit District funding 3 ways between transit, non-motorized, and arterial resurfacing. And as typically the case when we do any type of street project, whether it's like this, a non-motorized sidewalk bike lane project, or whatever it may be, there's always a corresponding stormwater requirement. In this case, we're widening 25th, so we're actually widening the traveled way to accommodate the sidewalk or the bike lanes, as well as adding, although they're pervious sidewalks, adding sidewalk. And the stormwater facilities have been sized just to meet the requirements of the additional surfaces that are being installed as part of this project. This was a very complicated project. There's a reason why this sidewalk had not been built in the past. It's very complex. There's retaining walls. There's not a lot of room there. So it is a relatively expensive project, but all of those components are, in our mind, appropriate for the non-motorized funding. Typically, when we do a transportation project, even though there's a stormwater requirement, it's paid for by the transportation funds, not the stormwater utility or some other method. So we believe this is appropriate. Shane is here. Shane Oden's the project engineer. He's here to answer any questions that the council may have. But we feel very good about the bid. This project is being put forward as a green roads project, so there's a significant amount of recycled materials included in this, and it's built in a very sustainable way, consistent with the council's and the city's policies on how we do business. So with that, we recommend award to Faber, who's the lowest responsive and responsible bidder.
Michael?
So thanks for responding to my question, my email question. And so just to state it very clearly, this project does include road surface work as well as below ground stormwater structures, and you're telling me that all that road surface work and stormwater work is only that which is made necessary by putting in the pedestrian and bicycle improvements?
Yeah, that's correct. So the majority of the asphalt work associated with this, when the project engineers went out there to do the work for the bicycle lanes, required removal of quite a bit of asphalt, maybe more than we originally anticipated. Through the geotech work, it was identified that we did need to do some additional excavation for that asphalt section. Again, that's pretty typical, and typically any of the paving work would be associated with the bike and sidewalk project. It is a pedestrian project, so it is all related to the sidewalk or bike lane in one way or the other.
Okay, well that addresses my concern that we were using TBD monies for things which maybe should have been paid for elsewise. And so with that assurance, I would move that we recommend awarding this bid tonight.
Okay. Jack?
So just kind of following up on the paving component of it, is this an overlay of the entire street, or is it just going, it is?
Yeah, okay. For this section, and Shane can speak to it more, but when we get into this where we're removing that much asphalt and trying to match up with the existing pavement, it really does make sense to pave it. It's a relatively short section for resurfacing, and we typically don't want to make that big of an impact on an existing street where you're removing and replacing that much asphalt without doing a complete resurface. So, you know, I guess maybe a another way to look at it would be, even if we do a water main project that's not associated with a, with a transportation section, if we need to do enough removal of asphalt as part of the water main project, we typically pay road edge to road edge with the water fund because it is associated with the water project. So this is very consistent.
Okay. And so the paving's actually going to go on 25th and Douglas?
Correct.
Okay. And then final question is what did we miss out on by not being able to take on Schedule B?
It's a good question. I'll let Shane talk about why he did it this way and what the results of the bid were.
Shane Odom, Public Works. So Schedule B, essentially, as Ted mentioned, this is a Green Roads project. So we have a lot of recycled material and sustainable practices, warm mix asphalt, recycled gravel base, even their curb and gutters, recycled concrete, porous pavement. And typically things of that nature are more expensive for the unit price compared to your day-to-day hot mix asphalt and standard, concrete. So I created two schedules. Schedule B is what we would normally use on a project, and all the other bid items, the more sustainable practice items associated with this Green Road project, I put into Schedule A. The reason I put it into Schedule A was so that I can get a more competitive, an actual competitive bid price on the sustainable products. Had they been in Schedule B, it might have been likely that a contractor, knowing those would have been higher than the standard products, wouldn't have even bothered giving me a competitive bid on it. And I think by looking at the bid results, you'll see that the Schedule A and Schedule Bs, because the contractors wanted to be so competitive, are pretty much the same. And as we move towards more sustainable building practices in the future, creating these Schedule B type analyses allows us to generate a database so that we can decide, whether something is going to be good for a project, whether or not we want to bid a sustainable practice. Is it, worth the bang for your buck? Or, I think it gives us that information.
Okay, so in using that Schedule A and B, you basically are subtracting out some cost out of Schedule A and substituting it with Schedule B?
No, let me clarify. So Schedule A is what the award of the bid is, and Schedule A has all the sustainable practice material in it. Schedule B is an alternative. If I felt that the price on the Schedule A sustainable unit bid prices were too high, I could go in there at my leisure and substitute it.
That's what I'm saying, is that
right.
You would swap out the price.
We could if we wanted to, but it's not as far as the award goes. I would have done that before bringing it to you. Let's just put it that way. I did a pre-award meeting where I sat down and talked to them about their unit bid prices. And had I not liked some of those Schedule A unit bid prices for the sustainable material, like they were just too astronomically high, I would have already substituted it and brought that contract forward.
And are we using LED lighting, street lighting?
Yes, we are.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, we have a motion to recommend approval. All those in favor, answer aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will recommend approval tonight. And let's see, our next item is, what is our next item here? Oh, here it is. Our next item is a proposed ordinance amending Bellingham Municipal Code 15.12 to adopt requirements for mandatory sewer service connections.
Thank you. Ted Carlson, Public Works Department. I'll turn it over to Eric here in a moment, and he'll walk through what these proposed amendments are to the BMC. Essentially, what we're trying to do is modify the code to go back to something that has historically been the city's practice. We made some amendments to the sewer section of the Bellingham Municipal Code back in 2012 when the council adopted the new utility rate structure through 2018, and it made the existing code less clear than it used to be. So what we're proposing now is to go back to our previous practice, and I'll turn it over to Eric, and he can explain really what we're trying to accomplish and what we have been doing.
Thank you, Ted. Eric Johnston, Public Works. So as Ted mentioned, this is largely a cleanup, if you will, of the city's code to clarify practices that have been in place for a long time. These are practices to allow for the city to assess a penalty or a charge for sewer service, even if the customer is not connected to city sewer, but city sewer might be available. So it's a pretty narrowly focused section of code that would apply to a few number of customers within the city of Bellingham. And Mr. Stamps in the legal department did put a staff memo within the agenda bill. It's fairly well written and covers the majority of the topics. I would like to come to the computer and go through a very rudimentary example to give a demonstration of when this would apply. So as I mentioned, this is a fairly narrowly focused provision in the code that would apply to just a very few number of parcels within the city. So this is a very schematic approach to a couple of parcels that might exist. You see a couple of four, 5, 6 lots that are built on, have a home on there, and then 2 parcels that don't have any construction on a typical city street with sewer in the public street. So for argument's sake, we're going to look at lot number 1 and lot number 3 being connected to city sewer. Lot number 2 and lot number 4 are served by a septic system. Lot number 6 is served by a septic system. Parcel A and lot number 5 have no development. Here on lot number 2, we see that that property fully abuts or has a sewer extending the full frontage of the lot, whereas lot number 4 is only partially abutted by the city sewer. The code changes will clarify that for lot number 2, who fully abuts the city sewer and could connect to that city sewer, that a sewer charge or a penalty would apply to that particular piece of property. Lot number 4, as that sewer does not fully abut the parcel, would not be subject to that sewer penalty. Likewise, lot number 6, which is not fully fronted by a city sewer, would not be subject to the penalty. In the future, as parcel A starts to potentially develop, other city requirements would be triggered, which require the extension of city sewer. And that's where you see that the sewer would be extended the full frontage of that lot. Development would require those parcels to connect to city sewer, which then now leaves lot number 4 as with a fully abutting sewer along the parcel, which then results in both of those lots, lot 2 and lot 4, to eventually be assessed that penalty or charge. Of course, that begs the question of how do we notify and what process do we go through to requiring lot number 4 to connect to city sewer? Or if we find lot number 2 that previously was not known to be on a septic system, how do we provide that notice? Staff have put together a plan to do that, essentially involving 2 notices, about a 6-month period. So any customer currently not being assessed that sewer charge, once the ordinance would go into effect, we'd give a grace period of about 6 months, a couple of notices, and then that charge would be assessed around the first of the year following. So hopefully that demonstrates a little bit of the narrowness of the scope, really trying to get to those lots which can connect to city sewer but are choosing not to for whatever reason, and moving that forward. The other questions about what happens with these other lots out here is beyond the scope of this narrowly written ordinance and a topic for another day.
Michael.
Also, my understanding, based on the memo, is that we don't have that much choice in this matter, that state law actually requires us to put a penalty charge like this in place. Is that correct?
You want to speak to that, Matt?
Yeah, that's correct. Matt Stamps, Legal Department.
Jack.
But it's an up to, right? We don't have to charge the full maximum according to state law.
That's also correct. Yeah, the state law just authorizes a penalty, and it authorizes it up to the amount of the charge that would otherwise apply.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, actually, it's not even a maximum. I think it says which may be equal to the charge that would otherwise apply. It's kind of a suggestion or just a clarification that that would be acceptable.
As a clarification on that as well, our long-standing practice within the city has been to charge this penalty equal to the cost of what the city of sewer charges would have normally been. So under the previous code, that was a little more clear. The sewer penalty charges that were applied were equivalent to the monthly sewer rate.
So we're basically charging the same then, right?
Correct.
It's just that we're codifying that.
That's correct.
Okay. I would move approval.
Okay, we have a motion before us. All those in favor, answer aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will recommend approval to the council tonight.
Thank you.
End of committee.